You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere. This is your WLAK Daily News Roundup for Lake Air, 107.5 FM and 1260 AM in Amory.
For WLAK News, I'm James Kelly. The Burnett County District Attorney's Office says no charges will be filed against the driver of a truck that crashed into an apartment building in September. The crash occurred on September 6th at around 11:15 a.m. when the 73-year-old driver of the truck crashed into the Lilac Grove apartment building in Siren, killing 81-year-old Diane Kemp. The district attorney's office says there were no drugs or alcohol in the driver's system at the time of the crash, and they have no reason to believe that it was intentional or that any crime occurred. Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources officials say the wildfire that temporarily closed Highway 2 in Ashland on Monday burned about 23 acres of swampland. The highway was closed in both directions for about 4 hours on Monday evening as crews got the blaze under control. Fire officials say nobody was injured and the cause of the fire is still unknown. They're also warning residents that persistent dry conditions have led to an increased risk of wildfires. The DNR has suspended burn permits in a number of counties across the state. Governor Tony Evers and Attorney General Josh Kaul say Wisconsin is joining another multi-state lawsuit against actions taken by the Trump administration. On Wednesday, Governor Evers announced the new lawsuit seeking to stop the Trump administration and Department of Transportation from blocking over $60 million in funding through the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Formula Program. The program was established to help states expand their electric vehicle infrastructure, and 15 Wisconsin projects had already been approved. 2 national aquatic animal dealers were convicted in 8 Wisconsin counties this week for shipping illegal and invasive animals to schools, residents, and businesses. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources opened an investigation after conservation wardens discovered shipments of suspected illegal crawfish, and the companies ignored educational outreach efforts. The suppliers, based in North Carolina and Indiana, were issued a number of citations in recent weeks. One was convicted on the citations in Barron and Chippewa County Circuit Courts. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources is accepting applications for the Shooting Range Grant Program. The program seeks to provide financial assistance for safe and accessible firearm or archery recreational shooting opportunities. The grant funding has previously been used for things like renovating backstops and constructing indoor ranges. The DNR plans to disperse $600,000 among grant recipients. Anybody interested in the program must contact DNR officials before submitting their applications by July 15th. A bipartisan coalition of state lawmakers have introduced a new bill seeking to improve healthcare access in Wisconsin. The legislation would create a new license for advanced practice registered nurses, allowing them to provide many services that a doctor would typically provide. Previous versions of the bill passed in the state legislature twice, but Governor Tony Evers vetoed them, saying the standards were too low. Under the new bill, nurses would need at least 4 years of experience and over 3,800 hours of clinical practice under a doctor's supervision. Dove Healthcare in Rice Lake is set to officially reopen next week after a winter water pipe burst forced its temporary closure. The pipe burst in December flooded the Bear Paw Avenue facility with ankle-deep water, and 46 residents were forced to temporarily relocate to other clinics in the northwest Wisconsin region. Organization officials plan to hold a grand reopening celebration of their newly renovated facility on Wednesday with a ribbon cutting at 4 p.m. The organization provides services like rehabilitation, post-acute care, and end-of-life care. Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez visited Shell Lake last week as part of a statewide effort to promote additional funding for tourism. Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez visited the Shell Lake Arts Center and Shell Lake Marine, highlighting allocations in Governor Tony Evers' proposed biennial budget for nonprofit art organizations and small businesses. Arts Center officials say the organization is currently working on a $5 million building project and shared information on some of their outdoor recreation opportunities they offer. The Wisconsin State Patrol is reminding drivers to be on the lookout for deer in the roadways as the weather warms up. According to a press release, the number of deer-related crashes typically increases around this time of year as does start to look for a place to give birth and young deer start to separate from their mothers. There were over 17,000 deer-related crashes in the state last year, leading to over 700 injuries and 9 fatalities. St. Croix County in western Wisconsin ranked third for deer crash totals with almost 800. The Wisconsin Department of Administration is proposing legislation that would require contractors working on major taxpayer-funded projects to use more apprentices registered with the Department of Workforce Development. The bill would require projects with a price tag of at least $25 million to have at least 10% of its workforce include active apprentices. The bill received a hearing in the state legislature last Friday and comes as the state had a record high of over 11,000 registered youth apprentices this school year. For WLAK News, I'm James Kelly.
Milwaukee heads to Florida for a 3-game series. Hi, I'm Jimmy Kuska filling in for Mike Clemens. After taking 2 of 3 games from the Houston Astros this week to get back to 500, the Brewers are taking on the Tampa Bay Rays for a 3-game set this weekend. The Rays are currently on a 3-game losing streak and sit 5 games below 500. Milwaukee is 3 games back in the NL Central. The NBA playoffs continued tonight. Last night it was the Minnesota Timberwolves blowing past the Golden State Warriors 117-93 to even up the series at a game apiece. Tonight's games include the Pacers taking on the Cavaliers, where Indiana leads 2-0, and the Nuggets taking on the Thunder in a series currently tied at a game apiece. The NFL is announcing its schedule next Wednesday in full, with the league announced that it will release select games on its broadcast partners. Several games will be announced between CBS, Fox, NBC, and ESPN, as well as streaming platforms Amazon Prime and Netflix on Monday and Tuesday. The full schedule will then be announced Wednesday at 7 p.m. on the NFL Network. Lower-seeded teams in the WIAC Baseball Championship won both games yesterday as Platteville and Oshkosh advanced. They'll square off today. La Crosse and host Whitewater play in an elimination game to start things off today. One of those 4 schools will be crowned conference champion tomorrow afternoon at the end of the double elimination tournament. Today is the start of the WIAC Softball Championship at top-seeded Whitewater. Oshkosh is the number 2 seed. Both Whitewater and Oshkosh have a bye until tomorrow's semifinal round. Platteville takes on La Crosse, while Stevens Point gets Eau Claire. The winners today will play tomorrow in the semifinals, followed by the WIAC championship game. Filling in for Mike Clemens, I'm Jimmy Kuska with Civic Media Sports.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. Just days after the president announced 100% tariffs on foreign films, there is serious pushback. According to Variety, the proposal is on shaky legal ground as the president has been using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, which gives him power to regulate trade in times of national emergency. But a Georgetown law professor says a 1994 amendment says a president can't stop the flow of audio-visual media. Since announcing the executive order, the White House said nothing official has been decided. Maybe Trump will forget about tariffs altogether after his failed run at the papacy. Keeping it papal, we have a new pope. But fun fact, according to the Hollywood Reporter, cardinals in Rome watched the movie Conclave as a research tool to help them in selecting the new pontiff. Politico reports that many cardinals call the film remarkably accurate. Coincidentally, the new pope's last name is not Fiennes, Lithgow, or Tucci. A new book about the show Better Call Saul reveals an interesting journey for the character of Saul Goodman. The character was first introduced on Breaking Bad before receiving its own spin-off, Better Call Saul. The role elevated actor Bob Odenkirk's career to a new level, although he probably would have gotten there anyway. The book, Saul Goodman v. Jimmy McGill, the complete critical companion to Better Call Saul, reveals that AMC wanted producers of Breaking Bad to scrap the Saul Goodman character altogether, but the producers stuck to their guns. Saul first appears in Season 2 of Breaking Bad, but before he went by that moniker, he was Jimmy McGill, as we learned in the prequel, Better Call Saul. Also a fun fact, the Saul Goodman character was almost played by actor Michael McKean, who played Jimmy McGill's older brother Chuck, also a lawyer on Better Call Saul. I realize this only makes sense if you are a fan of both shows. If you've got 800 smackers burning a hole in your pocket, you could see Jerry Seinfeld live. Seinfeld will be performing at Madison's Overture Center on May 30th. I recommend going to the Overture Center's website, where tickets start anywhere from $70 to $90. But if you want to sit close enough to make sure Jerry flosses those piano keys, make sure you get your tickets off the Overture site, where they are a pricey $500, but still $300 cheaper than other outlets. If you're thinking about heading to Summerfest this year, make sure you check their website. Wednesday on Nightlight, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel music writer Piet Levy told me a lot of acts have been added since the lineup was announced in February. This year's performers include The Killers, Def Leppard, Lainey Wilson, Gigi Perez, Billy Corgan and his new band. And if you're feeling retro, check out the Isley Brothers, Rick Springfield, and Devo. The event takes place over the course of 3 weekends and opens in about 6 weeks. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Mostly sunny today. We'll get to the upper 70s to around 80 for a high this afternoon. Tonight, mostly clear, down to 52. Tomorrow, sunshine in the mid to upper 70s. Then on Sunday, mostly sunny with a high in the low to mid 80s. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Outside now, it's 55.
That's your WLAK Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at lakeair.radio. The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.